wall just came right down, and I actually ended up getting the job. So you never know, again, what one little bit of information you'll hear from somebody, it can make a huge difference. So anytime you get a chance to take a listen to a speaker who does what you want to do, go see them. Definitely take advantage of that, because that's definitely very helpful. All right, so today, oh, incidentally, in terms of this, because this question came up a couple times, in terms of due dates, the due dates on FSO are correct. This Tuesday, midnight, you're going to be turning in Skill Check 4, 5, and 6. Now, it's true, Lecture 5 we didn't have because we had the guest speaker, but luckily all of our lectures are recorded, so you can watch last month's Lecture 5, and it has all the same material that you're responsible for in order to complete the hierarchy exercise. So make sure you watch that video closely and follow through on that. And if you have any trouble, again, that's what the lab is for, and that's what the open labs are for. So make sure you guys are getting in there to get your questions answers if you need it. So again, all the material's there. Make sure you watch that lecture and ask questions if you don't know what's going on, because we've got people on all the time. Brian is on right after this class is over. So definitely a great opportunity to tap into that online help, as well as the local help if you're in the local class. All right, so today we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. We're going to talk a little bit about how to work a little bit smarter, not necessarily harder, because we've been talking about it over and over again, how we can actually speed up our workflow by doing things in a smarter way. And it might seem like just a second here and a second there, but the reality is, if you save a second every time you do something, and it's something you do 1,000 times, that's 1,000 seconds you're getting back. So any of these little tricks and tips that you can use to do your job faster is going to make you more efficient and better able to meet deadlines, which is definitely a huge help. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to delve into materials and shaders, which is very exciting. We're going to be talking all about what objects are made of, the materials, and so we're going to talk a little bit about how do we change the color of things, because up to this point everything's been that dull, dreary gray color. How do you make things look more interesting to look at? So we're going to be delving into the materials. Oh, and image planes, that's going to be a big one. Up to this point, we have provided you with the image planes, those pictures inside of Maya that allow you to model with speed and efficiency. Well, we're going to talk all about image planes and how they're used and how you can find and use better reference images, so you can find your own image planes and bring them into Maya, and then you'll be able to build whatever you want, not just the stuff that I'm making you build, which is always exciting because you can do what you want. We're just going to help you with that process so you understand, because when you get to your level 3 assets, I don't know if you guys noticed, if you looked into that folder at all, we don't put the image planes in there for you. For your level 3 assets, which includes the Lego man, if you want to build that, you're going to have to bring those image planes in and line them up. And that's why we're going to talk about it today, in terms of how that process goes down. All righty? All good? Hell yeah. There we go. Thank you for playing. Anybody else? Hell yeah? Hell yeah. All right, good. So let's get into today's material and start talking about what the heck it is we're talking about today. All right, Brian, are we recording? Fabulous. Oh, do I need to do that still? Just one. My bad. You know what it is? I get excited, and I just want to go, go, go.
Well, as soon as you're done with this finish, boom. Didn't give me a chance to record, really.
No, that's not it. This one is it.
Story about being the guest speaker.
I know. Well, I was kind of bummed because we were not able to share that with the online.
I know. Yeah, that's too bad.
But hopefully there'll be other things that they can watch and learn from, because those are really helpful, I think.
It was great seeing you again.
It was. It was.
Talking about what we go back and change, be a little bit nicer to some people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? Honestly, I think that was one of my favorite things that he said. He'd rather go back and be nicer to people, be more helpful and friendly. I thought that was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Because that's such a huge part of it. I mean, this is a team sport. You gotta get along.
Small industry, we all want to be friends and help each other out.
Absolutely.
That's the way the industry is, when you get out there.
Yep.
It's pretty darn awesome.
Yep. Be nicer. My other favorite thing that he said was, I don't care how great you are at whatever game you're playing, you're wasting your time. You should be working on your work.
Right.
Not playing video games.
You play your video games before you game.
I think that was one of my favorites. I think I nearly lost it when he said that.
I know. And then he follows it up with, know, you can always go back to it.
Yes.
How many games? 3,000 games or something?
Yes.
Console,
Yes.
right? So obviously it's not going to leave your life, right? You need to dial it back a little bit.
Exactly. Focus on the schoolwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was great. I love that. All righty. So let's talk a little bit again about speeding up our workflow. Hotkeys, which I didn't really get into too much in this class so far. You know, every here and there I'll throw one out to you, but I haven't really delved into them into great detail because what I'm concerned with is I want you guys to actually explore the interface. And, oh, I didn't even realize you were hiding back there. I want you guys to explore the interface and learn the tools and where they are and see other tools. I think one of my big concerns is when you start off just looking at hotkeys, it has a tendency to sort of give you tunnel vision. You don't see everything else because you're just doing hotkeys. And they are very important, but I want you to explore. That's why we didn't really go into them too much. Any of you guys been to New York City before? Have you seen those carriages they have, the horses? They have these blinders on them like this to keep them from seeing the taxi cabs that are careening out of control all around them. Well, point being, they put those blinders on there to help the horse not see other things. But I want you to see other things. I want you to go looking for the extrude tool and go, ooh, bevel, what does that do? You know, I want you to be looking around and become more familiar with what's going on. And that's why we haven't delved into them. But that doesn't mean they're not important. They're definitely a huge time saver. So let's take a look at the hotkey editor and how we can use that to create our own hotkeys and shortcuts that will allow us to create some hotkeys to speed up our workflow. So we're going to go do a hotkey exercise. Now the good news is we don't really need to be set to the activity file folder for this particular activity because this is any Maya file, so we don't have to necessarily set our project, but we are going to go over to Maya and take a look at the creation of hotkeys and what we can do to speed up our workflow. All right, so first things first. Hi. Hi. Somebody talking over there. All right, let's take a look at hotkeys and how they work in our world. Now, oftentimes when you choose to use a tool or what have you from your main menu items, what you will notice is that next to that tool, there's like some little key designations in here. And these are the hotkeys or the shortcut keys you need to press in order to activate these things without having to go up here to your menu set to find it. Now, something that we are going to be talking a lot about in this class, actually this week, is the use of freezing transformations. And this is something we do quite often as a modeler, and for a number of other reasons as well. But what happens is when we take an object and we move it, it generates what we call transformations in the channel box. And this information basically tells us where that object is in space. It helps us to figure out where it is. And obviously all zeros puts it at the origin. But periodically what we want to do is sort of zero out that information, make it unnecessary, and say instead of this being this object's home and starting position, this is this object's home and starting position. So when we are over here, we are at the origin or its starting position. So what I can do is I can actually move an object to a new location, and then I can go to modify and choose freeze transformation. And if I choose freeze transformations, you'll notice what it does is it zeroes out the transformation information, and it says if this is this object's new home and starting position. So if I want it to go right back to this position, if I move that object, if I plug in all zeros again, it goes back there, not to the origin, because this is this object's new origin. And it's a bit of a misnomer because when we go to modify freeze transformations, we're not really freezing the transformations because the object can still move. It's not frozen. But what we're saying is this is its new home position as we have designated it. And again, all you have to do is select the object in object mode and go to modify freeze transformations. But what you'll notice is there's not a hotkey designation for that. So, well, if this is something I do all the time, why has that not got a hotkey? Well, there's a lot of tools out there. Not everybody needs all of them. So you can actually customize and make your own. So in terms of creating your own hotkeys, what you can do is go to Windows, Settings and Preferences, Hotkey Editor. and this will open up your hotkey editor. It takes a second, though. There's a bit of a lag on it. Not as bad as preferences, but. All right, so now I'm in my hotkey editor. And what you'll notice is that over here on the right, I've got a bunch of keys that are sort of teal in color, and that indicates keys that already have jobs, and the gray ones do not. But what you'll notice is if you hold down Shift or Control, different keys become available because you can actually combine those keys with keys to create your hotkey sets wherever you want them. So let's take a look at the idea of I want to freeze transformations on this object because that's something I do all the time, but I don't want to keep going up to modify freeze transformations to make that happen. So I'm going to make a hotkey for it. So what you want to do is first you go to your category here. I got to figure out where is this thing. And this is in my main menu. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my main menu items and choose that as my category. Next, I go through my main menu items and I see modify, because that's what it's under, modify freeze transformations. So if I drop it down, you'll see I've got freeze transformations and there's no key associated with it. So again, the 8 key does not have a job at this point. So I can make the 8 key the hotkey for freeze transformations. And then I'll hit save. Now, what ends up happening is this hotkey has been saved. So if I take this box and I move it and I press 8 on my keyboard, I just froze transformations. So I don't have to go to modify freeze transformations. So I can literally create hotkeys for all the things that I like to do with great frequency and speed up my workflow. Now, if you've got a hotkey and you don't want it, you can also get rid of it. Just get rid of that hotkey. Click that X, and now the 8 is no longer an option. Save and close. Now, if I move this object and I press 8, it doesn't do anything. So you can create and eliminate hotkeys anytime you like to speed up your workflow. Any questions on hotkeys, the ideas of how we can use those? No, we're pretty good. Anything online, my digital friends? Oh, there's a little X. There's a circle with an X in it. If you click on it, that will eliminate the hotkey that you put in there. And then save and close. All right?
Is there a way to use the menu option with that? Go ahead and repeat that question. I'm not sure.
The menu.
Is there a way to use the menu option with that?
Use the menu option. Oh, I think what you're asking is, can I access the options to any particular tool using the hotkeys? And no, you can't, because it basically allows you to execute the tool as a one-time thing. If you need a specific option in there, then you're going to have to actually go up and get the tool, or in some instances when you run a tool, you can go into the history, which is another thing we're going to talk about this week, and you can actually make modifications to the inputs there. But no, you cannot make an adjustment to the options in that way. It's a good question, but yeah, unfortunately we can't do that.
Can I run the output script so that it can work with the macro? If I have a macro, like a 15 button macro.
Well, what's really cool about Maya is it is infinitely customizable. As long as you have the ability to create the code to explain to it in a language it understands, you can do anything you want. I mean, we're going to talk about it today, but you could make the entire interface of Maya hot pink if that's what you want. So really, it's all about coding and programming. And people who are into coding and programming, wow, what a great job. Because what that does is it allows you to make tools. Because literally everything Maya does is a series of written instructions. We've got this beautiful interface, which makes it easy for you and I, but there are some people who have to actually program the code that makes this thing do what you want it to do. And as long as you can write code, you can do that. For example, if I open up the script editor, you'll see everything I've been doing today, Maya has been writing it down. You know, not because Maya is taking notes, but these are the programming instructions that explain what Maya is doing. Does that make sense? So if you speak this language, and if you see, it looks kind of a bit like C++ in terms of the grammar, if you will, you can actually program whatever you want, which is what makes this such a powerful tool, how much change you can make. Yep, great question.
Eric Online would wonder if you could put, let's say, the double pull shortcut on taskbar or the shelf
Absolutely, absolutely. We talk about that as well, but that's a function of just using the tool and holding Command and Shift as you do it, and you can actually create buttons. But yeah, those are all terrific time savers, and they make such a big difference in your workflow. Again, particularly with stuff that you use all the time. So you can make like all of your favorites and put them all up there. Absolutely. All right, let's get back to some more stuff here. Yes, go ahead. Oh, if you want to delete it, all you have to do next to that tool, where that menu item, wherever you put that thing, there's a circle with an X in it. You just got to click that, and that eliminates it.
And also, about the freeze transformation, it's only for one item or whole item?
You can grab several items and freeze transformations on them. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. But I always
translate, rotate, and scale.
Absolutely. But what I would recommend is always check them afterwards, just to make sure it did it to all of them. In theory, it should work, but there's a lot of theories out there. So you always want to make sure it's doing what you think it's doing. All right, nice job. Good questions. I love it when you guys ask questions like that. All right, let's talk about another cool thing called the Hotbox. And some of you guys might have discovered this one by accident and totally panicked. When you hold down the space, it's scary, right? But you hold down the space bar and then poof, all of a sudden there's stuff all over your screen. Well, the Hotbox is actually a shortcut to your main menu items. So when you hold that down, all of your main menu items pop up. Now you might be thinking, well, how's that a time saver? Well, if you look at the different menu items, what you will notice is not only is the modeling menu set up there, but the rigging menu set is up there, the animation menu set is up there. So you don't have to change your status line setting to whatever job you're doing in Maya to access these tools. So if you need to get to a tool right away, you don't have to change your status line, wait for your menu set to change, then go look for the tool. It's all right where your cursor is. So if you hold down that space bar, boom, those tools are right there. So again, a tremendous time saver for you because you remember which tools you use all the time, and you'll be able to go through those motions and get right to exactly the tool you want. So again, that space bar and the Hotbox, very helpful. Similar to that, we have something called marking menus. And the marking menus do pretty much the same thing as the Hotbox, but they work with Command and the right mouse button and Shift and the right mouse button. And what you will notice is if you hold Command and the right mouse button or Shift and the right mouse button, you'll see there's a bunch of tools that we use all the time. Insert edge loop, extrude, merge, you know, those are all right there. So we don't have to go looking for them. So again, a tremendous time saver for us by being able to find these things right at our fingertips because they appear wherever your cursor is. So you don't have to go looking for it. So it's a tremendous time saver for you in terms of being able to get your work done a little bit faster, which is always to your advantage. All right. Now, let's talk about, oh, incidentally, I do have some incentive for you guys. Now, in terms of the importance of the Hotbox and the importance of marking menus and the importance of using hotkeys, what we have decided to do is, as a reward system, if Brian and I are walking around in class and we catch you guys using Hotboxes, marking menus, hotkeys, you can win stickers to adorn your laptop with. Tease your friends. All right, now, and I'm going to let you choose. It's not my choice. You get to pick. And we have teenage, genetically modified samurai reptiles. Yeah, I don't know if it's copyright or whatever. I can't say it. But anyway, you can earn these stickers and adorn your laptops for using these time-saving techniques. And for my online guys, if you tell me you're using this stuff, I will believe you, and I will send you a picture of the same stuff. So you can put it on your laptop at home. But anyway, try to incorporate that into your workflows. It's going to make a difference. It really does. It's a tremendous time saver. I typically don't do it, but that's because hotkeys make everything go faster. So you would be missing half the stuff I'm doing. So I have to train myself to not use my hotkeys, which is a joy, I can tell you. All right, let's take a look at image planes. Oh, any questions real quick before we move on? Marking menus, hotbox, all that good? Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about image planes. At this point, we've been giving you the image planes, we've been lining up all of your files, and it's a tremendous help, right? The modeling process goes by very fast because we're literally tracing with geometry. So obviously this is a time saver, Gesundheit, and a big deal in terms of accuracy. So how do we get image planes into Maya and make adjustments so we can build our own stuff? And also, bigger question, how do I find and determine the difference between good and or better reference images? So we're going to take a little walk down that path right now. Now, in our world, we take 2D things and make them into 3D all the time, and we've been doing it for ages. We use things called blueprints. Blueprints are just that, a 2D image of something that will be 3D, right? So in terms of trying to build something, what is of the utmost importance to a blueprint is what is of the utmost importance to us as modelers in terms of our speed and ability to model. So what we want are nice flat side views of things, nice flat front views of things, top and bottom views if at all possible. Now that's not to say that your 3/4 views don't help, because what those images do for you is give you a really good idea of depth and how things come together, because you really have to understand the object, as we've noticed, in order to build it properly. So while you can't really use those 3/4 views directly inside of Maya to model with, they are definitely helpful. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, when I'm going to go model something, I will find upwards of 100 images if I can find it of whatever it is I'm making. If I can find movies of it, I'm going to get that too, because the more information you have, the better and the faster it's going to go. Now, we've had pretty good image planes to work with for our class because we made them that way for you. And if you're in the local class, you get to actually see the object. So lucky you guys. But in the real world, that's not the case. Not only do you seldom have the object with you, a lot of times you have to go find your own reference images, and you know, sometimes you have to take your own reference images. So knowing what makes a good one or a better one is to your advantage. So again, looking for nice flat sides and fronts is going to make a big difference for you in the terms of the speed of the modeling. Now, you guys want to practice doing image planes, bringing them into Maya? No? Just one of you? All right, how about you and I do it, and the rest of you, whatever you're doing. You... All right, let's take a look at image planes and how we bring them into Maya. Now, this is an activity, so the first thing we've got to do is what? Set the project. It's like music to my ears. We got to set our project to the activity file folder so that we can do this activity, and we're going to need it for this one for sure. I know you guys might be a little bit rusty since we had a speaker last time, so perhaps forgot some of that stuff. But yep, I'm going to set my project, file, set project, and I'm going to go to my activity file folder and set it. Now, in terms of this particular scene, what I want you to realize is that I've already actually put some images in here. And typically in terms of reference images, whenever you're getting a picture of something and you're trying to bring it into Maya, you put it into your source images folder. That's where that goes. Textures wind up going in there as well when you apply that to your geometry. But I've already got these image planes in here for you, and they're called neck, front, and side. So this is the way we bring image planes into Maya, or these are the steps. So in terms of bringing an image plane in, what we want to do is literally bring that image into Maya, and what we're doing is attaching it to a camera. It's physically attached to a camera. So the steps for bringing an image plane in are as follows. Go to your panel menu and go to View, Image Plane, Import Image. Now, if you have set your project, it will immediately go to the source images folder of your project folder. And this is one of the many reasons we set projects. And it will say, okay, well, which one of these images do you want? Because it's already looking for them. So I'll say, give me my mech front image, and hit open. And literally, the image just populates into Maya. Now, if I'm modeling and I want to use this as a reference image, am I going to be able to trace my geometry easily with this particular image plane? No, it's not working, right? Because if you've traced anything, you know that the key to tracing is you've got to tape down whatever you're tracing, right? If it shifts, you can't trace it. So here's the problem. This image seems to be moving. The image isn't moving. The image is attached to the camera. So if I've got the image stuck to the camera and my camera can look anywhere, the picture goes anywhere. That's why we use our orthographic views. Typically, you do not bring image planes into your perspective view unless you lock it because this very problem. So rather than bringing the image plane into the perspective view, you want to bring it into your orthographics, which is where you guys are used to seeing it. So the process is the same: view, image plane, import image. Now this is my front view camera, so which image do you think I should bring in? The front, right? So I choose the front view image and it appears in here. All right. Now, in terms of this image, and don't worry, we're going to walk around and make sure you guys can do this. So don't panic if it's not panning out right this second. We will make sure you can do it. In terms of this image, we've been looking at Maya for a while now. And two very important things in here in terms of the setup. This thick black line right here through the surface represents the grid that you see in the perspective view. So that is what we are using as the ground zero. So what you're going to want to do is make sure that your image plane is sitting so that the object is resting right on that thick black line. And what's nice about that is if you build everything that way, then when you bring all your objects into the same scene, because we build everything in a separate file, when you bring them all in there, they're all on the ground. You know exactly where they are and everything is lined up properly. Nothing is floating ever so slightly above the ground and not looking very realistic. So again, you want to make sure that you're lining up your object so that it's just resting on that surface. Now, the other thing that we're going to want to do is line our object up so it's divided evenly in half. And this thick black line here represents the middle of the world that we're building. And oftentimes, we're building objects that exhibit bilateral symmetry, meaning what's on one side is on the other. So if we separate the object right down the middle, we build one side of the object, and we can use really cool tools like the mirror geometry tool and mirror it to the other side. So we only have to build one side of something. So super handy there. So what we want to do is then still, again, just using our move tool, move the image plane, try to divide it in half. What I'm doing is I'm going to look at this big circle here in the middle. That looks like a very middle part of that object, and I'm going to line it up thusly. And incidentally, if you're having trouble selecting your image plane, because sometimes it gets a little difficult to grab, just do a marquee selection over a corner. That'll really help you out in terms of grabbing it. And can you rotate it and scale it? Absolutely. You can make it bigger, smaller, whatever you need to do to line it up. All right? So here's my front view image. So now I also have a side view image. Any guesses on where I'm going to bring that one? In the side view camera. That's right. I'm going to bring it into my side view camera. So I go from front to side, view, image plane, import image. And this time I'm going to choose my mech side view and bring that in. And again, my goal here is to raise up my image so it looks like it's just touching the surface of that world. And although this object doesn't really exhibit bilateral symmetry, what I'm going to try to do is just try to divide the mass of this thing more or less in half. Now, once I've got my image here and I've got my image here, here's where I have to start doing some interesting adjustments, and that's in my perspective view. Now, let's say, for example, this image is a different size, and way more often than not, that's the case. So if I come over here into my perspective view, this is the top of my mech in my front view, but this is the top of my mech in the side view. Do you guys think that might represent a problem in terms of the modeling? What do you think? What do you think the problem would be? It's going to be uneven parts, right? The proportion is not going to be there. Does that make sense? So this is not going to fit together. And where you will start to notice it is when you actually start modeling. You'll say, wow, these pieces are not coming together. Why do these views not agree? And the problem is the proportion is different from image to image. So what we need to do is make sure that these things line up. Now, luckily, these images are pretty well set up for this purpose, so they do line up very easily. But what you end up having to do in the event that it's a photograph that you've taken or a photograph you found on the web, what you end up having to do is literally scale the image larger or smaller and then try to line it up. And again, looking at this, this is the top of my mech in the front view, this is the top in my side view. So what I'm going to end up having to do is try to make those lines meet. And then, of course, since my front view, he's standing right on the ground, I want to make sure in my side view, he's also standing on the ground, and he's not. So what I need to do here is get my guy back on the ground, and what you do is kind of a back and forth between move it up, move it down, make it a little bit bigger, whatever you got to do to get those things to line up. And ideally, what you want to do is have it so that the top on your side view lines up with the top on your front view, and your feet are right on the ground. That's pretty close there. I might have to tweak it just a little bit more. Does that make sense? Why we do that? Okay. Now, the next thing I've got to do, so now I've got these image planes in there. They're lined up and proportioned, so I'm all excited to build, right? Am I going to be able to build with those pictures in there? It's kind of a hassle because they're in the way. And to be honest, we do mostly model in these views, but these pictures are kind of causing some trouble because they're obscuring my view. So something that I like to do is I will grab those images and I will move them off the grid. Now I know I'm hearing a collective gasp, but you tried so hard to line those up, don't move them off the grid. But watch, here's my front view image, right? With my mech, I want you to keep an eye on this. And you notice as I move this away, is it changing size? Changing scale? Changing proportion? None of that. Because this is an orthographic view. Orthographic, there's no perspective in an orthographic view. Something getting smaller as it goes away, that is a function of perspective. We don't even have that in this particular camera. So I can move this image as far as I want out of the way, and it's not going to have a problem. I can do the same to this image. Again, if you watch this one here, you'll see it doesn't change size at all. Now what I do, or what I am very aware of, is where's the grid. Because I like to be able to see my grid. It helps me line stuff up. So if I move this image to the wrong side of the grid, you'll see I don't see the grid. So what I want to do is take my picture and move it behind the grid so I can see it. Does that make sense? Because literally the grid is a physical entity that we can be in front of or behind. So I'll just scoop that thing this direction so I get to have the grid and the image. And again, to be honest, in terms of these image planes, I don't really need these in my perspective view. So I'm going to go to my show menu and uncheck image planes, and that literally hides them from view. But I still have them here because each of these menus has their own show menu, so I don't have to worry about where I can see it and where I can't. Does that make sense? Go ahead, Brian.
Well, some good advice. The ads registration mark for Photoshop, those images will line up if you know the scale.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And to be honest with you, in some instances, I will take my images into Photoshop and line them up there first and create one image that has both of them in it, and then bring that same image into both views. So, you know, a little work in Photoshop first to save you some time in Maya, or, you know, go right from the web to Maya, and then you have to do some adjusting in Maya. So it's just which end do you want to do the adjustment in. But yeah, they're both totally legitimate. I just need those proportions to be accurate, or the image plane is not going to help me. It's going to cause more problems than good. But that's a good point. I like that. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Brian and I are going to take a quick walk around and see how you guys are doing with bringing in image planes and lining them up. Just want to make sure you get a feel for how that works. Because again, level 3 assets, that's going to be you. So, oh, you got them in there. Nice, good job. All right, scooch over. How are you doing?
Do you want them behind the grid, or do you want them like that?
Well, as long as they are the right proportion, you can move them anywhere you want to. I just want to make sure you got them set up well, and then they're working.
Oh, okay.
There you go. See, not so bad, right?
No, I have trouble seeing that far away.
Oh, okay. Well, you can sit closer. You can sit right next to Brian. He usually bathes and everything, so you can sit closer. You know?
Yeah,
I think you should. I mean, honestly. Or bring binoculars. All right. Now, remember, we don't want to bring it into perspective view. We want to bring it into which views? The side view and the front view are orthographic views. So hit Z to get it out of there. Keep going, Z, Z, Z. There you go. Now go to a side or a front view. Now bring it into there. Same process. View. How you guys doing? Good? Good. No, looks like you got it going. Excellent.
If you line them up if you line the tops up and then you marquee select them all, and then you just bring them up so their feet are on the, would that work too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't make any difference how you go about it, but the process is the same. Good. Got it?
Okay, so you don't open up.
Got it.
You don't need
Yeah, it's not an import. You go to View,
import.
Image Plane, Import Image. Very good. No, looks like you guys are killing this. Good job. I like to see it. How'd yours go? Good? Awesome. Awesome. Good, good. I'll take a quick look back here. I'll risk the headset coming off. You set your project yet? Yeah. Oh, good. Good, good, good.
All right, there you go. Now you have it here, right?
All right. So it looks like overall you guys did pretty well with this. Nice job lining up the image plane. Let's talk about materials now. This is another exciting little aspect of working with Maya that I know you're going to appreciate. And this will actually give you the ability to change the colors of things so they're not that awful gray. It's no fun at all to look at. So what's important, though, for you to understand in terms of materials is the fact that when we think of materials, we think of wood or metal or plastic, and we think a lot about sort of the physical properties of those things. What does a wooden bowl feel like? What does a plastic bowl feel like? What does a metal bowl feel like? But in Maya, materials don't really have physical properties unless we assign dynamics to them. So in terms of materials, the way Maya thinks about materials is through the way it behaves with light. So what we're talking about is what color is it? How reflective is it? How shiny is it? Is there reflection, refraction? Anything that light does, this is how materials are viewed by Maya. So again, if you look at everyday objects, they all behave differently in terms of how they react to light. Now, for example, from our world, if you take a look at our acoustic tile here in the ceiling of our room, or if you look at the rug in your house at home, if you have a short rug in terms of the thread, those objects are very sort of dull, dry, chalky looking surfaces. Well, in Maya, the default material, which is called Lambert number 1, is a dry, chalky surface, just like, again, the rug or the ceiling tile. Light hits it, light does reflect from it to a certain degree, but I don't see any specularity in it. I don't see reflections of any kind in it. So really all I'm getting is a little bit of light and color information from that surface. So again, there's materials for every different type of thing that we see. If you look at this board here behind me, you'll see I can see the light that Brian is blinding me with. That light creates a highlight on this surface. It's a very soft sort of diffuse light, but it is shining on that surface and sort of fanning out away from where that light hits there. So this is a relatively shiny surface. If I look at the window of our classroom, that glass is so reflective I can see my face in it. So it's a totally different level of how it behaves towards light. Does that make sense? Okay, these are the things that Maya is concerned with when it comes to light. Now, in terms of the materials, they are all housed in a window called the hypershade. So if you go to the hypershade, this is where you will see all of the materials in Maya, including Lambert number 1, which is that default chalky material. And what you'll notice about the materials is they all have these things called attributes. And attributes are a way of describing the way something looks or behaves. Like with a person, tall, short, light hair, dark hair, long fingers, big feet. These are attributes of an individual. Materials have attributes too, but they deal with how does it react towards light for the most part. So in terms of these materials, they're all housed in the hypershade. So would you guys like to go see some hypershade activity and see how that works? All right, let's go to the hypershade. So luckily, again, this is not something I have to specifically set my project to, but let's get Maya going here. If you go to Windows, Rendering Editors, you will see the hypershade. And if you open up the hypershade, you will see, there we go, by default, there's 3 materials in there. Lambert number 1, which is the default material that everything in Maya is made of. There's a particle glow shader and a shader glow shader. And these particle shaders and shader glow shaders and Lambert number 1 are what we call the default materials in Maya. Now, it is of the utmost importance that we don't play with, adjust, mess with, or do anything with these default materials. Leave them alone. The good news is it is very easy to make new materials and change their colors and behaviors. And so we do that. We don't mess with the defaults because weird things start happening when you do that. So stay away from those guys. Now, the process for, oh, go ahead.
Let's just say I have some PBR material. Can I import them into this, or should I?
Well, some materials can be read by some applications and some cannot. So what you're going to have to do is look into, do these applications speak to each other? What I'd like you to do is imagine applications as being like languages. And some applications speak only Maya. Some applications speak Maya as well as 3D Studio Max. So you could bring a material from either one of those and it doesn't make any difference. But what you're going to have to do is look into the technical specifics of whatever application you're trying to bring stuff into and out of to see, does it work at all or does it work to a certain extent? Because it may work, somewhat, but not everything. Does that make sense? That's a great question, but you have to look into the technical specs of the app and see if they are designed to work together. And if there's no information on it, try it. What's the worst that could happen, right? Bring it in. It's not going to explode, I don't think. No, it's not going to explode. So feel free to give it a test and just see. But that's a good question. All right. So the process for creating, oh, incidentally, before I get into creating a material, I just want to let you guys know, if you happen to open up the hypershade and yours doesn't look like mine, don't panic, because the hypershade can have whatever windows in it you want. And, you might even open it and there's nothing in there. Again, don't panic. All you have to do is go to Window, and these are all the different windows in Maya that could be in the hypershade. So if you're missing one, you can just bring it in. So let's say, for example, I really wanted the outliner in my hypershade and it's not in there. I can't find my hypershade. So if I go here to Window and I choose Outliner, it will create an outliner window for me. And then all I have to do is, again, that sort of cut to the chase there. Sorry about that. All I have to do is grab the window by the spine and just move it around in the hypershade, and Maya's going to actually make a space for it. Now because I want it to. There it goes. And see how it kind of opens up, and then I can drop it in. So now the hypershade is part of my window. So if you need to, you can rebuild your hypershade. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And incidentally, those little X's, that allows you to eliminate a window. So if you've got one in there you don't want, like the outliner, You can click on it, and then now that's gone. So if need be, you can rebuild your Hypershade. It's super easy. All right, so the steps for creating a material, they're pretty simple. In our class, we only use Lamberts to limit it. I encourage you to play with other stuff, but realize that everything you give me has to be made of Lambert material. But the steps for creating a new material are as follows. First, you're going to go to your Create window, and you'll see there's a whole bunch of materials housed in here. And one of them is Lambert. So if I click on it, it will create a brand new Lambert. And Maya, like a good little machine, will stick a number on it. This is Lambert number 2 now. However, something that I do is after I've created a material, I don't use my material viewer to make adjustments to its attributes, because I have noticed from trial and error that 2017 is very fussy with how, when you make adjustments to these attributes, it sometimes causes Maya to completely crash. So I don't know why, but so I don't use the material viewer. After I've created the material, I then move the Hypershade out of the way, and I open up my attribute editor in Maya, which is the exact same thing, but for some reason, the attribute editor works better without the crashing. So I'm not sure why that is. But what you'll notice is in here, I've got a sample of the material, I've got a color attribute, transparency, ambient color, incandescence, the ability to plug in bump maps. So there's a whole bunch of attributes in here that I can play with. What I'm going to concentrate on are color and transparency. In terms of transparency, that's pretty straightforward. That slider changes how transparent the object is, so you can make it basically invisible if you go all the way to the right. But as you move through this sliding progression, you can actually see different levels of transparency of the material. All the way to the left is solid. Now, in terms of color, again, very simple. If you go to the color attribute, which is right up at the top, if you click on it, you open up what we call the color history. And the color history has some sample colors that you've used in the past. It has your HSV values over here, or you can switch it to RGB or whatever it is you're looking for. There's also this really fun little color wheel in here, and you can use your left mouse button to drive around and change that color. So if you want it to be sort of, take it into this pinkish area here, drive it over into the orange a little bit there. No, I'm going to make it a little bit more yellow, make adjustments there. And you can also use, again, your hue, saturation, and value to make adjustments to these colors as well. Choose the color, the hue you want, the level of saturation, is it very faded or is it very rich? And then you can go into your values, which is light and dark, and get to basically whatever color you want in terms of its behavior. So now I've created this material, and this is its color. So now you're wondering, well, how do I make objects made of that color? Because if I look at my object here, you know, it's still Lambert number 1, because everything is made of Lambert number 1 by default. So one of many ways you can apply a material is if you take your mouse and you hover it over the material in the Hypershade and hold down your middle mouse button, which gives you the green plus of power. And then you drag it to the object and let go. Now this object is made of that material. So if I want to change that material, and I can apply that to several objects, I can have more than one object, and I can apply that material to that object as well. But something you have to be aware of with this material, oh, and I should name it, blue material. Always a good idea to name as you go, because it's like Photoshop. If you don't name your layers, before long you have 100 layers and you don't know what's on what layer. So good idea to name as you go. But I can make as many objects as I want, and I can make them all made out of this material. And if I make changes to the material, it's actually going to make changes to every object that's made of that material. So you can see it's now transparent. I can see through it. So if I want several different shades of blue, or if I want to make some things transparent and some things not, but they're the same color, what do you think I need to do? Any thoughts? If I want to make a different color, let's say I wanted to make this cube red and leave this one the color it is. What would I have to do? Create a new one, make another material. So if I need to do that, I'm just going to make a new Lambert, and then with this new Lambert material, you know, maybe this one's red, then I change my color history to red, and now I can apply the red to this one. So I can make as many different colors as I want. Think of those materials like crayons. And what I'm doing here is I'm applying color by object. But I can also apply color by face if I want to. So let's say, for example, I want to make the top face of this cube this bluish green color here. I can go to face mode, select just that face, that only that one, and then come back to my hypershade, and I'm going to hold down my right mouse button over the material, and you'll see in the top part of the menu set that pops up, it says assign material to selection. And what I can literally do is assign the material to just that one face. So now, most of my object is made of this red material, but this one face is made of this bluish green material. So basically, the only thing that really limits your use of color is the edge flow of your model. So think of the geometry of your model like a stained glass window. And where the edges are, that's kind of like the leading that separates the different colors. So as many edges as you have, you can make detail. So for example, if I wanted to put a little red square in the middle of my blue cube here, I could grab just that face, do an extrusion, make a smaller face inside of a larger one, and then with that face selected, assign the material. So really, the edge flow of my model determines where I can assign color. Does that make sense? All right. So here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to open up your toolbox exercise. What? We're too big for that. Oh, but look, I've got all this stuff in here. I want you guys to try to build that object again, and I want you to create some colors. And please don't use mine, make your own. But I want to see you assign some colors to your objects. And I would love to see you guys assign colors to parts of objects. So for example, if I open up my hypershade, all right, there's my hypershade. Make like your sphere orange, but then I want you to make like half of it blue. You know, make a Pokeball or something. And so Brian and I are going to walk around and see how you guys are doing, but what I want to see you doing is applying some color by the whole object, and I'd like to see you apply color just by some faces, do some design elements. All righty? So let's play a little bit with this and see how that goes.
How do you get one of the windows to exactly?
You just have to drag it near the window and move it around, and eventually it'll make a little opening for it. Yeah, it's kind of like a magic lamp. You sort of rub it and it goes whoop in. Well, yeah, you don't want to make the adjustment here because, like I said, that has a tendency to crash Maya, but if you do it in the attribute editor, it works much better.
I'll talk to you later on class.
How we doing?
When does it show that?
Well, these materials, if you select them, that's what it will load into the attribute editor. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whatever's in the attribute editor is what you have selected. So if you're looking for something, that's how you get it. Oh, cool. Like a day at the circus. I like that one. How you guys doing with your materials? Good? Nice. There you go. Now all you have to do is drag your materials onto there with the middle mouse button, and that will apply it to those objects.
Toolbox.
Window, rendering editors, Hypershade. Hypershade is where all the materials are. Cool. All right. Now, you guys keep working on that, but something I wanted to tell you about the way you can use this. This isn't really how we texture objects. That's a whole other process. Honestly, I wish we had time to go into texturing in this class because it's really fun. I like it. But unfortunately, we don't have any time for that. But one of the particularly useful functions of being able to color your geometry like this is, as a modeler, I mean, for me, it gets really boring when you're looking at just gray stuff all the time. So it's really kind of fun when you can add some color to things, just make it more interesting to work on, and you can kind of see the different materials and how they look together. So just on an interest level, it's definitely to your advantage. But the other thing that's really nice that I will do is, if I'm working on a model that's got a lot of different pieces on it, I will make sort of the base pieces of that object darker colors, and I will make sort of the pieces that I build onto it slightly lighter colors. And what that does is it really accentuates the depth and the detail of the object. It's kind of like a dry brushing technique where you paint very darkly first and then you hit it with less and less paint on your brush over the details. It really sort of accentuates detail. And it makes it easier to see what you're looking at, because when everything's just sort of that middle gray, it's hard to see depth on your model. So this is a great way to kind of make it a little bit easier for you to see that depth and really get a feel for what it is you're building. So it's not just this flat gray color. It's no fun to look at. All right, how'd everybody do with that one? Pretty good? We got that going on? Okay, great. All right, like I said, that's a pretty fun one. Hopefully you like that one. All right, now, with the completion of that, that brings us to our skill check for Lecture 6. Guess what it is? Color the zombie kill bus. So, if you recall, if you've already watched lecture number 5, the video, lecture number 5, we built a hierarchy so that the zombie kill bus could be animated. All the parts move together, everything does as it should. But again, it's still that dull, dreary gray color. Wouldn't it be super fun if we could color that thing up and make it something interesting to look at? So what we're going to do is we're going to take that same zombie kill bus, and now we're going to add color to it and make it a lot more fun and interesting to look at. So that's your skill check for lecture 6. So just to give you an idea of what we're looking for, I've got an example bus I can show you. And let's see, where's my, this is a great one. I love this one. Here's what somebody did with their zombie kill bus, coloring up. Again, just utilizing the edge flow that's already there and just having some fun with it. And again, applying color to various parts to make it much more interesting to look at. So that was a particularly fun one. I really like that one. But this assignment is wide open. You guys can do whatever you want. So do something crazy. Have fun with it. I'm always excited to see what you guys come up with. So feel free to play. Do whatever you like. But what I want to see is that you are able to create a new material, make sure you name that material, change the color of that material, and apply it to the bus, both by object and by face. So, I mean, you could make the whole bus pink and make the front windshield blue, and that would suffice. But, I'd really like you to explore and have some fun with this. You have a question? No? Good? Okay. Just want to make sure we got that. Any questions online about our Lecture 6 skill check? Are we pretty good? Yay, okay, good. Well, every once in a while they can be quiet. That's fine. I don't mind. Just not all the time. Then I get nervous. Yes.
So when I was doing Hypershade, I would find an exit in the window of Hypershade.
Yes.
Couldn't find the right X, and I was clicking all the other X's.
Oh, no.
Windows, how did bring those windows back up?
Again, what you're going to have to do is go to Window and find the windows you need.
Okay.
So like Material Viewer, Create, just create those windows. They will appear, and then you got to drag them near the Hypershade window, and then they will appear inside. It's kind of like, it's weird. It's like rubbing the magic lamp. You got to kind of put it near the window, and then it goes, and magically pops in. I don't know. I hate that feature. I'm sure there are those that love it. I'm not crazy about it.
I wish we could lock it off.
Yes, that's what I'd like to do because it's weird. I don't know. But whatever.
Definitely be a switch.
Yeah, it might even be. I don't know what it is.
Putting it out there. Everybody get it.
Yeah, if anybody figures that one out. How do I lock that? Because I'm not a fan.
No floating window off.
But anyway, so again, that's your skill check for Lecture 6. Just color up that zombie kill bus. Have some fun with it. Again, so Lectures 4, 5, and 6, the skill checks are due this evening by midnight, so make sure you get those turned in.
Andrea is excited about this.
Oh, good, good. I'm glad. A lot of artists, I think, really like this one because they're tired of looking at gray. You know, let me color it. You know, for Pete's sake, this is killing me. I totally get it. It does get old fast, that gray, but yeah, color definitely makes a big difference. It's much more fun that way. But again, as I said, this is not really the texturing process. It's a whole other animal, but we will delve into how that works somewhat for this class. We just won't be able to actually generate our own textures, which I wish we had time for. But unfortunately, we do not. But good news is you have a shading and lighting class where you're going to get textures like crazy, so you get an opportunity there. All righty. Well, that's actually all the information I want to talk about today. I think you got a brain full there. I try not to pile up too much. Any questions about today's material that I can touch on and make sure everybody's on board? Everybody? Okay. No, looks good. All righty then. Well, I will catch you guys on Saturday. We will have lecture again. That'll be number 7. Incidentally, crazy fact, this is lecture 6. We are more than halfway done with this class, which is like scary. How could it be halfway done? But it goes really, really fast, And I've been teaching this class for years, and it still goes by really fast. It's amazing how quickly. So.
I have a question, but she's not typing it in. So
Okay. Okay. Well, again, if you've got questions, make sure.
She's going to go to the Hangout.
Okay, good. Go to the Hangout. Terrific. That's a great place to get questions answered. And you guys, that's a resource for you as well. That's not just for online. You know, online, they have these live lectures with me, which are recorded, and they have the online help sessions, and that's all they've got to go to. So, you know, and they're doing great. The turn-ins I've been seeing have been awesome. Hopefully they will continue. So, you know, you guys have those resources as well. So take advantage of everything that's out there for you. Ask a lot of questions in lab and get your work looked at.
Also,
you know.
the peer tutors are great too.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad they're very helpful. Those guys are terrific, super patient. And honestly, those are people who came to me and said, hey, can I be a peer tutor because I'd really like to help. Well, actually, they didn't even know what a peer tutor was, but they said, is there some way I can help 3DF students? Because they knew that this is hard. This is not very easy. You go from not being overly challenged to being, you know, up to the hilt with challenge. And they said, hey, is there some way I can help students coming in? And so those are the people that I hired to be peer tutors. So they're terrific. I'm glad you're making good use of those guys because they like to help people too. So otherwise you wouldn't teach, you know, if you don't like helping people. So get in there, take advantage of all that help because that's what it's there for. All righty, guys, see you later. I'll catch you on Saturday. We'll be talking about some more fun stuff then. Get those skill checks in. Oh, Thursday. That's true. Let's do it then, too. My bad. You know what? I never know what day it is. I don't know what. So I'll see you on Thursday and Saturday. Why not? I appreciate it. Somebody's got to pick up the pieces. I don't know. All righty. Thank you, guys. I'll see you on Thursday.